What's up, everybody, to a brand new episode of Media Chop Up. My name is Serge, aka Sergerilla, and I'm joined by my very close friend Jason, aka the Human Movie Almanac.
I like it.
Yeah, that's you. You're the Human Almanac, brother. The movie,
Oh,
no,
man.
the movie Almanac. That's who you are.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah,
It's
you
good to
have.
be back. Good
Yeah,
to be back.
this is a fun topic that we kind of came up with, and look forward to seeing it through. Today's episode is called Top 10 Hood Classics. Now, we preface this and we let people know that this episode was coming out and we wanted suggestions to hear from the people in our Facebook chat. And some people were on point with their suggestions and other people were way off. So so we will clarify what we mean by hood classics,
Mhm.
okay? But let's start off by, I'm going to ask you, what draws you to this category? Is there anything that sticks out for this type of movie for you?
I think this genre, well, I always say that horror got me into loving movies, but
Mm,
this is probably the genre that really made me fall in love with films because even though a lot of these movies are R-rated, I saw them at a young age.
yeah.
Back then, I wasn't old enough to rent it. My dad, anything I'd tell him to rent for me, he would get it.
Nice.
And I
Nice.
saw Boys in the Hood when I was probably 13.
Wow.
So I grew up on these movies,
Mhm.
so they're fun to talk about, they're
These
fun to
these were
discuss,
these were very real stories, especially for a young
and
kid,
and
you
there's a
know.
lot of really good ones,
Yeah.
excellent ones. So
Definitely. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of these stories, I mean, what I look for in one of these movies, these hood classics, is realism. I
yeah,
mean, listen, we all grow up in hoods. There are, but I'm not gonna pretend and say that the neighborhood I grew in was anywhere as tough as a lot of these hoods.
yeah.
These things are predominantly ran by gangs, and you got to look over your shoulder constantly, and nobody is safe ever. So these are real stories of people trying to get out, or you have very close friends that are in, and then you're out, or whatever the case may be. So that's what drew me to these type of stories, the realism, you know, um, the rawness of it.
Yeah, yeah.
A good story, which we'll talk about in all these different episodes. I mean, all these different movies, they vary, but they draw you in, and that's really what kind of drew me into this category. When we brought this up, I was like, there really is a lot. And let me say this, let me get this out of the way, okay? Today, we're both going to give our top 10, right? Our top 10 favorite, most classic hood classics, right? Just because we didn't say something doesn't mean it isn't any good, but
Right,
it's hard. It's very hard when you kind of you squeeze them into 10 picks,
right.
you're gonna miss stuff. So fans, don't go crazy out there, but we definitely want to hear your feedback. If there's anything that we missed, let us know. In your opinion, let us know why you like something, whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
We love the stimulation, we love the feedback. It keeps us going. So don't take it personal, is what I'm trying to
Right,
say. All
right.
right. So let's start off with the definition of hood classic. You have a definition? No, I'm going to read the hood. I came up with a definition. All right.
Yeah, I like
And
yours.
and this is my definition for hood classic. Hood classics are movies that either take place in the hood or deal with gangster ass shit. Right? Now, we fully understand that some of our melanin challenge viewers might not have seen these movies. So if you haven't, these are the hood movies that you need to see. The hood movies that will change your life. The hood movies that will define if you're cool for school or more like Screech.
Perfect.
So sometimes we'll get some real left field suggestions, and we're like, "What?"
Right.
I'm like, "Where are these people going with this?"
Yeah.
Hood, gangster ass shit. All right,
Right.
all right. Not everything is gangster. Okay, I
Right.
don't want to see that movie with Jamie Kennedy, Malibu's Most Wanted. I don't want to see that. Don't want to see that. Although that is a comedy and it kind of is in the hood,
Yeah.
that's not going to make the top 10. All right. I'm
Right.
just saying. I'm just saying. All right. So let's get started with this. Let's start with my number 10 choice. for hood classics. My number 10, Juice. My number 10 is Juice. And that movie was great for a multitude of reasons. You have the late, great Tupac Shakur, Omar Epps, which was in everything during this time period. He's in so many great movies. Khalil Kane, Samuel Jackson, and being that I'm saying Samuel Jackson, just to school some of you people, we did an episode recently with Samuel Jackson versus Denzel Washington. It's called the Face Off Clash, and it was a lot of fun. And we literally did it last week. So every time we hit a movie that Samuel Jackson is in, I'm gonna give a little tribute, say a little hell to Samuel Jackson. So being that Samuel Jackson was in the movie Juice, which I completely forgot about, right? I'm gonna give you a little Sam real quick.
April Fool, motherfucker.
So that was Sam in the movie Juice. But the movie Juice was a great movie. To read the storyline to you, basically, it's four Harlem friends, Bishop, Q, Steele, and Raheem dabble in petty crime, but they decide to go big by knocking off a convenience store. Bishop, the magnetic leader of the group, which was Tupac, a convenience store, he has the gun. But Q has different aspirations. He wants to be a DJ and happens to have a big gig that night of the robbery. But unfortunately for him, Bishop isn't willing to take no for an answer in a game where everything is for keeps. So this basic story is a group of friends in the hood that do hood ass shit. You know, they're not the best kids, right?
Right.
They do petty crimes, but when a gun gets put into the equation, friendship is out the window and it becomes about power, right? They say in the hood it's about money, power, and respect. This movie's about power and the power that he felt that he got, Tupac, by having the gun. And he turned against all his friends. And the word power, another word for it is juice, which is why they named it Juice. You got the juice. And it's a very good movie. I was really into it at the time. Here's some images from that movie that I put together. You can see now in the bottom, the guy goes to him, you got the juice. It's about power. It's about money, power, respect. It's about power. And unfortunately, and it's true in many ways, people feel like they have the power when they own a sidearm and they own a gun. You know, people start acting differently. So, anything you want to add on that?
No, it's a good choice. I have it on my list too, just higher up. But
okay,
I was really impressed by Tupac. I mean, he was downright scary.
Great. He was doing a lot of acting, but he was great.
Yeah.
He was sadistic. He was like, and he was a very talented brother, and you can tell, like, you know, rapping was his thing, but he also took acting seriously.
Yeah.
And a role like this, he kind of fit in. You know. Now, one may make the argument is because he was already a gangster ass guy. You know what I'm saying? That he kind of fit this role.
Right.
But, you know, whatever. That's just my opinion, you know.
But I think if you look at other films that he was into, you would see that it wasn't a fluke. He really had talent.
Oh, absolutely.
Look at Poetic Justice and stuff like that. So
he was also in a movie with Jim Belushi. He played.
Oh yeah.
He didn't just play a hood dude. He played a cop, corrupt cop. He's played all these different roles, man. And I wish we had so much more of him in this lifetime.
Yeah.
You know, but in the little spurts that we got him, he was great. You know. All right, so let's move on to our number 9. My number 9 choice for movie is going to be Dead Presidents. Great movie.
Awesome film. Yeah.
Absolutely love that movie. Man, it was powerful, and it had a lot of really big actors in it. I'll give you the storyline. Soldier Anthony Curtis, played by Lorenz Tate, returns to his Bronx home after a nightmarish tour duty in Vietnam. But the nightmare continues for Anthony and his friends as they suffer the indignities of trying to find steady work and provide for their families in a flagging economy. As desperation takes hold, Anthony teams up with Skip, which is played by Chris Tucker, a drug addict, and Kirby, played by Keith David, a small-time crook, to pull off a bank heist that will give them all a chance for a better life. So I like the story because it touches on a truth of history of our soldiers being brave enough to fight and sacrifice their lives, making it back home, and there's nothing there waiting for them.
Right.
These streets were cold, a cold reminder that it doesn't matter what you did over there, or it's just sad. It was a powerful story to me. A lot of great actors. We have Lawrence Tate, Chris Tucker, Keith David, Terrence Howard, Clifton Powell, Bokeem Woodbine, who's a very underrated actor who's in a lot of great movies.
Yeah.
Sticky Fingers, a lot of great stuff. Here we go, Dead Prez. There we go. It's a great film. I love the way it was filmed, the cinematography of it.
The Hughes brothers.
The Hughes brothers. Oh man, I love the Hughes brothers, man, and very talented individuals. And I absolutely love that movie, man. It was a great movie. What'd you think about it?
Oh, I loved it. And I always thought it was underrated. 1995 was a year of, if you look at 95, there were great movies released that year. But for anybody who's probably thinking, oh, why this movie doesn't get a lot of attention, or why it didn't get a lot of attention even in 95, is because it was marketed the wrong way. It was marketed as an action movie, and it's not. It's a drama. And I
Okay.
remember all the TV ads back then concentrated on that bank heist, which is just
Which was massively done.
yeah, terrific.
Great images, yeah.
It was like a few minutes.
Yeah.
That had, what I mean? The heart of that movie is the Lawrence Tate character,
Yeah.
and basically his struggles after returning from Vietnam, and not only that, how his friends, how all of them, how all of them changed and stuff, especially the Chris Tucker character, who basically
this is the early
drug
version of Chris Tucker
Yeah.
that was raw and cursed,
Yeah.
and he portrayed some heavy shit. He
Right.
stopped doing that. He changed his life, and his roles changed significantly. He didn't want to represent that, even though he was so good on the screen. Right
Right.
behind you, you have Chris Tucker in Friday, and he was so good in that.
Right.
But
That same year.
he didn't go back. He didn't go back to it.
Yeah.
So it's sad but true. But it is what it is.
Yeah. Fantastic movie.
Great movie. All right, let's move on. All right, my next choice, my number 8 movie is American Me. Now, I'm not sure if a lot of you guys saw it. It's an old school movie, great movie. Cast, let me see. Edward James Olmos, which is great. William Forsythe and Pepe Serna. And there's so much more, but those are the most notable names that people may know.
Yeah.
I literally remember watching this when I was like 18 years old, and it's raw as hell. It's like in the hood and in prison too.
Mhm.
But you can see that this character who was leading this crew, this gang, and he was very well respected. And when he came out, was conflicted internally with the way he should be and the way he was in prison.
Yeah.
Just because he was out, was his brain was still working. He fell in love. He didn't know how to fall in love. He didn't know how to truly be a good boyfriend, husband, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
But powerful movie, man. This movie is absolutely a classic. Edward James Olmos is a great actor.
He is.
He is a great actor, and I was conflicted with putting another movie, but I felt like this one edged it out a little bit. You have anything you want to add on American Me?
No, that's a great choice. And Edward James also directed it, so he deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah,
He
definitely.
had a real good sense of if my memory serves me correctly, it's his first time directing, and he did he had a great sense of the way the camera and everything should be, and those prison scenes. I mean, you would swear that he directed a lot of movies before that, because
I'll tell you, man, these scenes are burned into my brain, man.
Yeah.
If there's anybody who abided by like respect, abided by honor, was Edward James Olmos in this movie. even to his final breath, he was an OG. He was
Yeah.
like most people would have cowered and hid, and some people did. And like a
Mhm.
man, he put himself out there and was like, "You got to watch this movie. It's a
Yeah.
great movie." I don't want to give too much. Although the movie's super old, I don't. You
It's
need to.
30 years old last year.
Time flies, man. Time
Yeah.
flies. All right. So my number 7 favorite movie is gonna be Boys in the Hood, which is classic on so many levels. With a director of John Singleton, rest in peace. John Singleton was great. You got a lot of these actors early in their career. Cuba Gooding Jr., Ice Cube, Lawrence Fishburne, Morris Chestnut, Angela Bassett, Nia Long, Regina King, early in their careers, and they were magnificent. The storyline is this: Trey, which is played by Cuba Gooding Jr., is sent to live with his father, Furious Styles, who is Lawrence Fishburne, in a tough South Central Los Angeles. Although his hard-nosed father instills proper values and respect in him, and his devout girlfriend, Brandy, played by Nia Long, teaches him about faith. Trey's friends, Doughboy, which is played by Ice Cube, and Ricky, Morris Chestnut, don't have the same kind of support and are drawn in the neighborhood booming drug and gang culture with increasingly tragic results. We spoke about this earlier. You make a very, very good point. All these characters that I mentioned are all good guys in the bigger scheme of things.
Mhm.
Now, you have different levels of friends that they mention it. For example, Ice Cube, he didn't have the support or the father presence that
Yeah.
Cuba Gooding Jr. had, and
Right.
and Lawrence Fishburne was dropping jewels always on him, and he wanted him to stay away from it. But at the same time, and it's something that we learn as parents, as much as you instill in your children, they still ultimately have to make their own decisions. And
Mhm.
this is a story of that, of being in the hood, of trying to get out of the hood, and how the hood pulls you back in. There's so much negativity, it finds you, latches onto every single bit and piece of everything and pulls it down. This is one of those stories. Very, 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 very powerful story. I love this story. It was very sad, to say the least. I came up with a little image right here. Some scenes. It shows them as kids. It has a very young Nia Long, Cuba Gooding Jr. It shows John Singleton on the top with the kids and with Ice Cube and Morris Chestnut.
Mhm.
Classic movie. Classic movie, which basically set the precedence for a lot of these hood classic movies.
Exactly.
I must
Yeah.
absolutely say. A lot
Yeah.
of these movies were all competing. And truth be told, this is a great movie. I have it as number 7. This thing could go all the way up to number 1. It's that good,
Yeah.
but it's still in the top 10.
Mhm.
And I truly, truly respect the storyline in this movie. So, anything else you want to add before I move on?
No, not much. You said what you said is true. I mean, and a lot of other movies were inspired by it. John Singleton, what can you say? Wrote a great script. He became in 1991 the first black man to be nominated for an Oscar for directing, and not only that, to this date, he's still the youngest person ever nominated for Best Director at 21 years old. That is incredible.
That's so powerful. That's
21 years old. He was
so
nominated for
powerful.
Best Director.
And I must say, Ice Cube was great in this movie.
Great. Yeah.
He was great
Everybody
in this
was
movie.
great.
This is a rapper that was transitioning into acting, and
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people who feel like, oh, you're just a rapper. No, I try to put you into one peg, not at all.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, Ice Cube, even though it's some hood shit and he lived the hood
Mhm.
life, he made it look easy.
And
You
there's
know,
a great scene where Lawrence Fishburne is fantastic too. There's a great scene where he calls Trey and his friend. They were outside, and he talks to them about. He tells them, "Look at that billboard," and he gives a great,
I remember that.
almost monologue about gentrification and stuff. It's a great
Yes,
scene.
yes,
Fantastic movie,
yes.
man.
So
Very
well,
powerful.
so well written. And
And
listen, you can't, that was an A+ cast, man.
it's
To get
just,
Lawrence Fishburne, Angela
yeah,
Bassett, Regina King, Nia Long, all of them played their roles very, very well. Ultimately, these these are young men. These are teenagers turning into men,
Yeah,
right? And they have to make decisions in a
yeah.
very hard, cruel world. And this is a movie that shows that.
What
And
about real quickly that scene where Fishburne calls the cops because somebody broke into his house? Remember that scene? And that cop shows up, and it doesn't turn out the way you expect, right?
yeah, what's funny is that that's a good point. Like in this movie, it doesn't just touch on gang violence;
Yeah,
it touches on police brutality,
yeah,
racism.
yeah.
It
The
touches
cop
on
tells him
all that stuff.
it's too bad you didn't kill him. Too bad you didn't shoot him.
Yeah, the cop does say that, and ultimately, it's out for themselves.
Yeah, yeah,
Living in this environment, you got to worry about these streets, and then you got to worry about these cops. And
yeah,
very powerful story. If you think about it, think about everything that was going on in LA at that time.
yeah.
And then you have Ice Cube, who's a part of NWA, that was basically rapping about that
Hmm.
too. So
Hmm.
this went perfectly with him.
Yeah,
It went
yeah.
perfectly with him. But let's move on. My number 6 top 10 movie would be King of New York with
Mm.
Christopher Walken, Wesley Snipes, once again Lawrence
Once again,
Fishburne, David Caruso, Steve Buscemi, Giancarlo Esposito, Paul Calderone, Harold Perrineau. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Great, great, great movie.
mm.
I watched this many years after I watched a lot of these hood movies, and I heard about it. And I was like, "Oh, I gotta see this movie." I gotta say, let me tell you the storyline, right? So the director was Abel Ferreira, the writer was Nicholas St. John. A psychotic drug lord leaves prison bent on sharing his profits with the poor, but finds that the streets are tougher than when he left, and that there is no way of washing the blood from his dirty money. You know, Christopher Walken, was he ever young? He has the same face. He has the same fucking
Yeah.
face. Christopher Walken. You know how you see a development of certain actors and they're aging, and then
Mhm.
Christopher Walken has been the same since
Since day one.
Since King of New York. He has other movies. He still sounds the same. He has a certain speech pattern. It's hilarious, but great movie. What I loved about it more than anything is the surrounding cast.
Mm.
Wesley Snipes, playing a cop, Lawrence Fishburne playing his henchman who was really bad, David Caruso, another cop. Man, it was a cops versus bad guy storyline, and Christopher Walken was the leader, and it got bad, you know.
Mm.
And seeing these guys early in their heyday was fun to watch. One of my favorite scenes is when they're under the train station and they're shooting at each other, the cops versus the bad guys. I love that scene.
Mm.
I don't know why. I just like, man, seeing all these stars together.
Yeah.
David Caruso's from that show, NYPD Blue.
NYPD Blue. Yeah.
He was very popular with that. Giancarlo Esposito has proven to be one of the greats on screen, throughout the years. But this is early in his career.
Yeah.
I love seeing these guys together. It was fun to watch. It's definitely my number 6 on top 10.
Good choice. And Abel Ferrara is he's a very gritty director, man. I don't know if you've ever seen Bad Lieutenant with Harvey Keitel. Other movies, I think he made this one called Miss 45. There's this movie made called China Girl. He's really good at these urban stories and violence and stuff. He's great at filming that, and that's a good choice. And Walken, like you said, is terrific in it.
Definitely. All right, so let's move on. My number 5 favorite hood movie is gonna be the movie, and this is one of my all-time favorites. I love the storyline with this. The movie Fresh. The director is Boyz Yakin, and the writer is Boyz Yakin. Fresh, who's played by Sean Nelson, is a 12-year-old drug dealer who finds himself trapped in a web of poverty, corruption, and racial tension in Brooklyn, New York. When his drug addict sister Nicole starts sleeping with local drug lord Esteban, Giancarlo Esposito Fresh calls upon the skills he learned playing chess with his alcoholic father and speed chess champion Samuel L. Jackson, once again Sam, and devises a complex strategy that will free both himself and his sister. I love this movie on many, many, many levels because it was deep. Not to mention, the late great Big Pun sampled a scene from this movie and put it in his album. This movie, if you haven't seen it, is one of my favorites of all time. I love the storyline. I love how Sam, he kind of plays that Lawrence Fishburne role where
Yeah.
he's the father, the wise father, trying to school his son how to stay out of trouble,
Mhm.
how to make moves, and he compares life to a game of chess. And
Yeah.
what's dope is that it doesn't seem like the kid named Fresh is really receiving this information, all right?
Right.
But he really does, and he starts realizing that stop living life like you're scared to lose,
Hmm.
just like in a game of chess. The pawns are made to move up and lose. Like each piece is worth something. You got to stop holding on to them like you have to save everybody. You can't save everyone, which I think is a big part of what we see in this story.
Right.
You have all these different characters, and you can't save everybody. Especially there's so many aspects of everything. So to go along with the whole Samuel Jackson, I just want to say hello to him again, since again he's poking out again in one of our movies. We'll give a
Yeah.
tribute to Sam once again.
You a smart motherfucker. That's right.
That's right, Sam. You said it. You said it. And you know his favorite word is motherfucker, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so I love his role in this. I love the way the guy who played Fresh, his name is Sean Nelson. He
Hmm.
was great in this. Great movie. How about you? What do you think?
Oh, terrific movie. Now you make me feel bad for not including it on my list, man, because everything you said, man, is true. I first saw this sometime in 1995
Oh, yeah.
because I used to watch Siskel and Ebert, and they had it on their best of the year list,
Yeah, man.
and I rented it. It's a terrific film, man.
I didn't watch it when it aired, when it was in the theater.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you watch movies after the fact and you didn't hear about it initially,
Hmm.
when I watched it on TV at home, I was so impressed. I was like,
Right.
man, where was I? Where was I when this movie came out? What was going on? Great movie, amazingly written.
And how does a movie have a chance when also playing in theaters at that time were Forrest Gump, The Lion King, True Lies, Pulp Fiction?
In
You know?
certain times in time, you have movies that slip in the cracks, right?
Yeah.
But then you also have movies that excel only because there's no competition.
Right.
This is one of those movies that slips in the cracks,
Yeah.
and it deserves to be heralded. It
Definitely.
deserves to be recognized and celebrated because it was a great story. It's very real. I love the tactician aspect of it, of this young boy outsmarting grown-ups,
Hmm.
hood ass dudes who make a career of living on the streets selling drugs, and he finds a way to turn things against each other. So he's just in the middle and he survives and he gets what he wants, which
And
ultimately
using chess strategy to
using
carry
chess
out.
strategy,
Yeah.
using his father's advice, and on top of that, and I'm sure Samuel Jackson, when he gave him that advice, didn't mean it in the ways that he was using it, but
Right.
he became a master. And this young kid, throughout the whole movie, they kept saying, "Yo, one day, Fresh, you're gonna be the man. You're gonna be the
Hmm.
man." Well, he was the man, and he proved
Yeah.
to be the man throughout the movie, and he was great. You
He was.
know, I only regret that we didn't see him in other movies going forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the same type of lead role, like he definitely in a movie full of great actors,
Hmm.
and he was a young boy. He definitely held his own weight. You
And
know,
who knows how many kids he beat out for that part? We don't know, but
I gotta
um,
absolutely look into that, man.
he was really a great discovery for that director, man.
Definitely, definitely. I agreed. Let's move on to our next one. My next one is a a fun movie that was based off of true events, and that one is going to be Paid in Full. Great cast: Wood Harris, Mekhi Phifer, Cameron, Regina Hall, Esai Morales, Sheeb McBride, Jamie Hector, and Hassan Johnson. Some of those names you may not recognize, but when you see their face, they're in a bunch of movies. These guys are very, very seasoned.
Right.
Great storyline. Let me give you the storyline of this one. So for Paid in Full, in the late 1980s, Ace, which is played by Wood Harris. First of all, in all these years I've seen him, I never knew his first name was Wood, but then that's just me. Is a young man employed by a Harlem dry cleaning shop, working hard to stay out of the drug business. While making deliveries, he meets Lulu, Esai Morales, a drug dealer, who convinces him to join him. Ace recruits his friends Mitch, Mekhi Phifer, and Rico Cameron, and the trio became major players in the Harlem drug underworld, a violent business that will test the friends' loyalty and wits as the money rolls in and dangers grow beyond their control. And this is one of those movies where, as you watch it, the character of Wood Harris was very cautious and he was very smart in the way he moved. And what ends up happening is when you can't do it by yourself. So you have somebody in charge of this and this guy in charge of this. So if the police catch you, your hands are clean.
Right.
But what ends up happening is when you abide by a certain way of moving to keep you from getting caught and other people break those rules, it makes you vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
You got to find that link in the chain that's weak. And that's what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to. Great movie. I would think that seeing Cameron acting, being that he came from being a rapper, I wouldn't have liked it as much. But the personality of Cameron matches the character he played. A pretty boy, flossy dude. So it kind of like, it goes with the story. And it was a really good story. I really, really enjoyed it. I know you haven't gotten a chance to see this movie yet, but you definitely need to watch it. And I really want to know your opinion of it.
I want to see it because I really want to know how you have it ranked higher than another movie I'm not going to mention.
This is just for the record. For the record, I've revised this list so many times, and I was like, you know what? As long as it's in the top 10, that's all that truly matters for the most part.
It's gotta be pretty good for you to have
but
it.
But it is a good story, and
Yeah.
and I really want to hear your opinion. But let's move on to the next one. My next one, I decided to think outside the box, right? We're talking about hood movies, right? We went East Coast, we went West Coast, but now we're going to go a little bit farther. In this movie, my number 3 favorite hood movie is going to be City of God. City of God won a bunch of awards. Great movie. Great, great, great movie. And you can't even say that you know who the actors are. These are all foreign people from Brazil.
Yeah.
Brazil is a very, very beautiful country, but the hoods are violent as fuck. And the police don't even go in the hoods. That's how I've heard so many crazy stories. Let me give you the story. In the poverty-stricken favelas of Rio de Janeiro in the 1970s, 2 young men choose different paths. Rocket is a budding photographer who documents the increasing drug-related violence of his neighborhood. Jose Pequeño is an ambitious drug dealer who uses Rocket and his photos as a way to increase fame as a turf war erupts with his rival. Knockout Ned, the film was shot on location in Rio's poorest neighborhoods. Now, this movie overseas reminded me a lot of like the movie Juice. It's like you have a bunch of friends that swear by each other, are loyal to each other, that grew up to each other, that love each other. But once you insert the whole aspect of power, getting a gun, they turn against each other.
Yeah.
Violence, And what made it even more powerful than the movie Juice is that these were kids.
Yeah,
These are
kids.
kids that should not be living this life so young.
Yeah.
And this echoes a real truth of what's going on in Brazil. It was a very, very powerful film. And the whole thing is in a different language. You know,
Mhm.
so for me to love this movie so much and put it on my top 10 so high, it has to say a lot.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, great movie, won a bunch of awards. Even to this day, and I saw this years ago, it still holds weight with me. So that's my number 3. I decided to take it to a different hood in a different country. All
Yeah,
right.
that's a great choice. Great
Yeah.
choice. Great movie. Yeah, was up for 4 Oscars, including directing.
Yeah.
It's
Great,
even
great,
Martin
great.
Scorsese has commented over the years on that movie how
Yeah.
much it impressed him.
Great movie. All right. So let's move on. Did I put, let me see. It doesn't matter. I was going to read the director, but all right. My number 2 favorite hood movie of all time. We're getting up there, man. We're getting up there. Is Menace to Society. Woo! Man, this is a powerful film. Director the Hughes brothers once again, and writer. You know, the Hughes brothers were very involved in this. I love this story. Let's read the storyline. After growing up in the gang lifestyle of the Los Angeles projects, 18-year-old Kane Lawson, played by Tyrone Turner, wants a way out. Everyone around him, including his unpredictable friend Old Dog, Lorenz Tate, who's awesome in this, is trapped in their lives of crime and violence. With the help of his caring teacher, Charles Dutton, and supportive girlfriend, Jada Pinkett, Kane plans to leave the city for good. But in a series of tragic events, Kane realizes that the escape will not be easy. Woo! Great movie. I
Yeah,
absolutely love this story. What about you? What do you think about this?
it's a great choice. You have it at a good spot on your list.
Yeah.
It's also on my list at that same spot. So
Okay.
what can you say? The Hughes brothers debut. That's as impressive as a filmmaking debut as there ever was, I think.
As a
And
matter of fact, I didn't even read you the cast. Tyron Taylor, Lorenz Tate, Jada Pinkett Smith, Samuel Jackson once
there he is
again.
again, man.
There he
He
is
is
again. In
again.
fact, he wants to say hello to us again.
All
So,
right.
hey Sam,
Please, motherfucker.
there he is again, man. Bill Duke, Clifton Powell, Charles Dutton, Clifton Colin Jr. A lot of these names you don't recognize, but you'll see them, you'll know who they are.
Yep.
Great movie. I have some images from the movie right here. You know, powerful stuff. Lorenz Tate was awesome in this. You know, it isn't just violence for a bunch of
Mhm.
teenage boys, young men, but it's also violence for the young kids who are seeing them.
Mhm.
So it's a powerful story, man. Hughes brothers don't miss, man. Those guys are awesome.
One of the most powerful scenes in that film is when Kane goes to prison to visit Glenn Plummer, who's Jada Pinkett's, ex-husband, or the father of a child.
Uh-huh.
And it's powerful because here's Plummer behind bars, and he's looking at this kid, and he knows that he's with his woman, right?
Yes.
And he basically says, "You know what, man? I want you to take care of her, man. You're a good dude. Take care of her. Take care of my son. Give him something that I never had." He's basically giving this guy his blessing to move on in
And
life.
that's one of the toughest things to do when you're
Great
incarcerated.
scene, man. I mean,
Yes,
wow,
powerful.
great scene.
Absolutely. I forgot about that.
In a movie that has a lot of violence and stuff, that was
Whew.
one really
This
great
movie had
grounded
a
scene.
lot of violence, and
Yeah.
I was speaking to my cousin Isaac about it, and he asked me, he said, "You remember seeing this movie with me?" And I said, "I really don't." And he goes, "We saw this in the theater, and they oversold the tickets, and
Mm,
we literally sit on the stairs to watch this."
wow.
And I remember as a young kid, first of all, being uncomfortable when I would see certain levels of violence. Like, damn, I
Yeah.
shouldn't be seeing this, but I like it. But I shouldn't be seeing this, right? But it was one of those movies that were like I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. An amazing cast. Lorenz Tate once again hit the mark. Samuel Jackson. He didn't have a big role in this, but he plays whatever role he plays it well.
Yeah.
He's the man of many faces. That might be his nickname.
Hmm.
But he's great in this, and even though it's number 2, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, great movie. Let's go to my last choice, my number one
You made it,
choice.
man.
My number choice. What have I not mentioned that can be number 1? You know what that is?
Well, I know what it is.
You know what it is. But my number 1 choice is gonna be New Jack City, directed by Mario Van Peebles and written and acted in it. My man is the man of many talents, but very talented brother. You know the storyline offhand?
I haven't seen it in a long time, but
basically it talks about a bunch of gangsters that are basically ahead of their time and find a better way of selling their drugs, and it's a highly addictive drug. Let's go through the cast real quick before I even continue on that. Wesley Snipes, Mario Van Peebles, Ice-T, Chris Rock, Alan Payne. Right? These guys were great in this. There's so many great monologues and parts of this movie that I could watch this movie forever, man. Wesley Snipes was the ultimate gangster, and he was the head of this thing, and basically they decided to sell their drugs, and with finding the best way to sell drugs and not be infiltrated is they took over this project, and all the families inside the project, they paid them, but they basically made a fortress where they can produce their product and divvy it up and sell it, and the crackheads were in abundance. And one of the number 1 crackheads in this movie who did awesome was who? You know who that crackhead was?
I can't remember.
Yeah, Chris Rock.
Chris Rock, okay.
Chris Rock was so good in this movie.
Yeah.
He was so good. He ended up playing a crackhead in another movie right after, but he was so good in this movie. And
I gotta see it again. It's literally been like, man.
And
I think I only saw this movie once.
There was a point where Wesley Snipes with his brothers, with his team, right, with his own brother who he created this dynasty with, was saying, "Am I my brother's keeper?" Basically saying like we're all we got. We are all we are to each other to support each other, And eventually it gets to a point where it's like, are you looking out for me the same way I've been looking out for you? Is the loyalty reciprocated the way I've given it to you? Wesley Snipes was a great kingpin in this, and I think by far in many levels you had an Ice-T in this, or Mario Van Peebles, Chris Rock, Alan Payne. All these guys were great in this. So many great scenes, so many memorable scenes, and because of that, I have that as my number 1.
Right.
So, I got it off my list. That's my number. That's my number 1, and that's my top 10.
Except with the exception of Paid in Full, I've seen. Well, I have to revisit New Jack City though, but the other, all your mentions are great. I love the City of God inclusion on your list too. Yeah.
We took that to a whole nother country.
Yeah, you took it to the hood in Rio, right?
But I know you have your own, and
yeah, I'm gonna go through it quick because
in some way I feel like I made it easier on you because some choices of mine are choices that you would have chosen, so you were able to choose some other things. So I want to know your top 10.
All right, so I'll start with number 10.
Okay,
and the reason I went with this one is because, like I said, horror movies that genre got me into loving movies. So I had to pick a hoodie horror film. And
Okay.
no, it's not Tales from the Hood. It
Okay.
is Bones from 2001. Bones. Bones. After 20, I love Snoop Dogg. I'm sorry, man.
I'll say this. I have never seen Bones.
You've never seen Bones? Let me tell you something. Drop what you're doing right after this podcast and watch Bones. All right.
Fuck work. Fuck sleeping for work. Okay.
Yeah, call out sick.
Okay.
So after 20 years after his death by a gunshot, Jimmy Bones, an original pimp, man. I mean, Jimmy Bones comes back as a ghost to wreak revenge on those who killed him and to clean up his neighborhood. It also stars Pam Grier.
Okay.
Fantastic.
I'll tell you.
Uh-huh.
In Snoop Dogg's life, was this his first movie?
That's a good. No. Wasn't Baby Boy before? Baby Boy came out. Baby Boy is John Singleton's film. That came out before this.
Okay.
He wasn't there.
Okay.
And also in 2000, that was a big year for Snoop Dogg because also in 2001 he was in Training Day.
Okay.
So my ode to Snoop Dogg, my tribute to him, I put him on this list, and I don't care who disagrees.
Another rapper.
It's a hood movie, and it's a horror movie. Okay. So moving right along.
There's nothing. I can't deny Snoop Dogg being a hood. He's a hood dude, you know. So
right.
I look forward to seeing that movie. But go ahead, continue.
So in number 9, also thinking out of the box, and also because I think at a lot of times comedy is harder than drama. Okay. It's a lot harder to write something and make people laugh than it is to write something and make people cry. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna go with "I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker," one of the best movie titles ever. From
I like the way you're painting the whole canvas. You know what I'm saying? I was going. You're going in a different direction to a certain extent, and I like it because it's true to the topic. Okay.
Right. I didn't want to pick.
And you have some greats in that movie. You have some real greats actors. You have Jim Brown. You know, you have
Keenan Ivory Wayans, who also directed it, and a great. You mentioned Chris Rock in New Jack City. Chris Rock has a great couple of scenes in this film. Basically, it's a parody of blaxploitation movies. Okay. Black hero wannabe reunites former black heroes from the 70s to help them get revenge on Mr. Big.
Okay.
So it's a hilarious film, man.
Yeah.
And like I said, I wanted to include a comedy in there. I almost went with Friday.
Okay.
But you know,
and Friday's a great choice too. You know.
Yeah. I put Friday as my background. That's Friday's little tribute on this show. Moving right along.
Yeah.
So that's number 9. And number 8, I have from 1996. F. Gary Gray directed this. He's a good director. He also made The Negotiator. Set It Off. Starring Jada Pinkett, Vivica Fox, Kimberly Elise. Great cast.
Jada Pinkett once again hit. Jada Pinkett hitting the top 10 again because she was also in the other movie I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, fantastic performance in this by Queen Latifah. She's outstanding. There's also Blair Underwood. Basically, desperation drives 4 inner city women to bank robbery in LA. And they start, mistrusting each other after they get all that money. And it's a terrific movie.
It is a good movie.
From 1996.
I made it easy for you, bro.
Yeah, I mean, listen.
I made it easy for you because when I was thinking of all these movies, I felt guilty about not choosing certain movies. So, So you're like, you chose this, I choose this.
Right.
Okay.
So that was what number? What did I say?
I should have kept my top 10 to myself beforehand, and see how it would have turned out. But okay, go ahead.
So now we get more classic hood. This is what am I up to, man? 10.
You're number 7.
Number 7 from 1995. New Jersey Drive. Another hood movie that a lot of people haven't seen, but it's basically about the two main characters, Jason and Midget. Jason and Midget are 2 young black teenagers living in Newark, New Jersey, the unofficial car theft capital of the world. Their favorite pastime is that of everybody in their neighborhood, stealing cars and joyriding. And their trouble starts when they steal a police car and go joyriding.
Yeah.
And man, all hell breaks loose after that.
I've seen that movie once. And,
really? Once?
Yeah, and I want to see it again.
Yeah. It's worth another look.
Yeah, I know it's. I mean, it's based off of a truth of New York. New Jersey
Right.
was like, especially what part of Jersey? I forgot what part of Jersey it was.
I think it's
Was like
Newark.
it might be Newark, yeah. The
Yeah.
the the, the car stolen capital of the world, like something like
Yep.
that, right? Which is crazy to even
Right.
fathom. So they made this movie, so it definitely is worth noting, absolutely. And
Right.
this movie was true to form, and
Right.
seeing that.
A very good film. 1995, directed by Nick Gomez. So
Yeah,
for those who haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. New Jersey Drive.
yeah, yeah.
You know what number I'm up to? Because I didn't even.
Number six.
I'm up to number 6, and I'm not going to talk much because it's also on your list. It's Dead Presidents. We talked
Yes,
about it.
yes.
Fantastic
Yeah,
movie.
If
Hughes
I was
brothers.
more, if I was more prepared, I would have showed you. One year, I on Halloween, I was trying to figure out my outfit, and I said, I'm gonna go retro. So I wore like a retro leather jacket and nothing major, and torn jeans. And I went to someone in a costume shop that was doing makeup, and I said,
Right.
I want you to make me look like one of the thieves in Dead Presidents, right? And he was
Yeah.
like, I like it, and I showed it to him, and he made it happen, and I got a lot of people turning around and like, oh yeah, Dead Prez, right? One person called me a mime. I was very upset, but
Mm.
but also the person behind me was like, I want the same thing, and I was like, this motherfucker. That was my idea, but whatever. All right, so yeah.
So
So
yeah, Dead Presidents. Number 5 also on your list.
okay,
I got Juice at number 5. I
okay,
agreed with everything you
all
said
time
about it.
classic. Yeah,
Fantastic movie.
definitely. What you
And
got for?
for 4, I got Judgment Night from 1993. I placed it really high for a few reasons. One,
Okay,
it's forget about hood movie. It's one of the most exciting films I've ever seen. I literally, when I
it
went to
was.
see this,
It
I
was a
thought I was
thriller.
gonna pee myself after a while, man.
Yeah. It
It's
was. It
four
was
young,
intense. It was
four young.
intense. Yeah,
Say again.
it was intense.
Yeah, it was very intense. It's basically about 4 young friends, you know, taking a shortcut. They're en route to see a big boxing match, and they take a shortcut. They wind up in, man, one of the most secluded ghettos you will ever see, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Remind me who's in that movie.
we got Cuba Gooding Jr., Stephen Dorff, Emilio Estevez,
Yes.
Jeremy Piven. Those are the 4 friends going to the boxing match.
Yeah.
And the bad guy that they run into, played by Dennis Leary, man, he is
Yes.
fantastic. And not only that,
Yes.
his crew is, they're intimidating, man.
They're
They're no
relentless. Yeah.
nonsense. When they start going after these guys and chase them through, man, every sewer, every supermarket, they take a
100%.
tour through the hood.
Yeah.
So a fantastic
Yeah.
film.
It seemed like they couldn't get away, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
for those who've seen Judgment Night, I hope you like it. I hope you love it as much as me. Number 3, I have one of Spike Lee's most underrated joints. I have Clockers, also from 1995. We could do a whole show on 95 here.
Yeah.
Clockers, man. It's a fantastic film, man. Delroy Lindo's in it. Mekhi Phifer was very, very underrated. We
Guy
talked about
Pfeiffer
him
again.
before.
Yeah.
Basically, young drug pushers in the projects of Brooklyn live hard, dangerous lives, trapped between their drug bosses and the detectives out to stop them. The detectives basically the main detectives are played by Harvey Keitel and another underrated actor, John Turturro.
Yeah.
So,
He's so decorated
yeah,
throughout
yeah.
the years. But yeah, definitely.
And also, Martin Scorsese was involved with this production as well with
Mhm.
Spike Lee. So it's a
That's deep.
fantastic
Yeah.
film. Clockers from 95. At
Yep.
number 2, I have Menace to Society, which was also your number 2 choice.
Yep.
We talked about how fantastic it is. It just gets better every time you watch it. And number one, I have Boys in the Hood. It's the best hoodie movie of all time. I thought it was the best movie period of 1991, and 91 was a very strong year for movies.
And we spoke about this. A lot of movies basically followed the lead of Menaces. I mean, to Boys in the Hood,
Yeah,
and compared themselves. I think I saw something a while back where somebody was comparing their hood movie. This is the East Coast version of Boys in the Hood, and I was like, you don't need to compare yourselves to that. But
no,
that's almost like trying to capture lightning in a bottle.
yeah,
The success Boys in the Hood captured, they try to capture for their story based on the East Coast. Ultimately, I'm not one of those persons. Although when I analyzed my list, I realized a lot of my stuff was heavy East Coast in terms of stories told.
Right.
But I'm not one of those people who is delusional and thinks that East Side is the best side or whatever. Listen, all these hoods are real as fuck, and I love the stories and the realism and the character development and the kids, the kids involved, and it's powerful stories to me. So yeah, I was a fan of a lot of these movies. I love the movies that you chose, minus Bones. I have not seen it yet, so I can't really have an opinion on that.
Okay.
And Judgment Night was one of those movies that definitely had me on the edge of my seat.
Yeah,
It reminded me of a couple other movies, but listen, we can go down that list forever. There's a lot of movies that we omitted from this show. It's really hard to make a top 10. And if you guys have any opinions on what should have been added or we didn't, or what we haven't spoken about, please feel the need to on YouTube check us out. Write in the comments. Hey, what about this movie? We'll respond right away. But hey, thank you so much for coming together with a top 10 list, for listening to my top 10 list. It was not easy to make. If I would have continued, every time I looked at this list, I revised it. So at some point I had to say, listen, I got to stop moving this around.
Yeah.
There was certain movies that I removed out of the top 10 that I truly love, but at the end of the day, you have to stick to your top 10. You pick your top 10, that's what I'm going with. So also, our next episode is going to be another face-off. Our last episode before this was Denzel versus Sam. So our next episode is going to be another face-off battle in categories, and it's going to be Johnny Depp versus Leonardo DiCaprio. So we have a bunch of categories to compare them with. It's going to be interesting. A lot of these guys were involved in many, many great movies, and it should be interesting. So please join us. Subscribe. Check us out. Media Chop Up on YouTube. We have plenty of episodes and cool stuff that we talk about. We love the feedback. We look forward to any suggestions that you guys may have. If you guys want to be involved, you're more than welcome. We are truly movie enthusiasts at heart. So, my brother, thank you so much. The human movie almanac. That's what your name is.
There's just one scene in Bones that you got to see. Where this guy tries to sell Snoop some drugs, man. He's like, "You want to get high?" He's like, Snoop says, "Nah, brother, I got a natural high, a supernatural high." Let me tell you something, man.
You know what's funny? Yeah.
You're gonna love it. Watch it.
But you know what's funny is that we did a review on another Snoop Dogg involved movie in Daytour.
Daytour, yeah.
And he plays a vampire killer. So it's interesting,
Bones is like the black version of The Crow.
Ooh.
A guy comes back from the dead to avenge.
Interesting comparison, because
you know what I'm saying?
There is a huge following of The Crow online.
Yeah.
And for the late great Brandon Lee, great movie, slow paced, but man, it definitely is a cult classic.
Yeah, the 30th anniversary of his death is coming up too. March 31st will be 30 years since he died. Can you believe that?
Time flies, man. Time flies. I feel older and older every day. Thank you. But all right, guys, thank you so much. Thank you for another episode of Media Chop Up. We'll check you on the next one. Always remember, do what you love and love what you do. Catch you on the next one. The next one's obviously going to be Leo versus Johnny Depp, Leonardo DiCaprio. It should be fun. If any of you guys want to be involved, let us know. We'll see you in the next one. Peace. From our hood to yours.